Thank you.
So I move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any other discussion on that? If not, all in favor of approving the agenda, please respond by saying aye. Thumbs up online. All right, motion has been approved unanimously. We just heard from Cameron about the minutes, so did you send those out, August?
Yes.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the August minutes?
They weren't sent out, right? They're attached, but I don't think they were attached to tonight's agenda on the email.
The August one?
Yeah, the August minutes.
If not, it's in the packet.
Right, it's in the packet. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read all of it yet.
Good. Somebody like to motion to push that to the end of the meeting and we can approve it then?
Make a motion to end the meeting. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to move the approval of the minutes to the end of today's meeting, which would effectively make that item 11. All in favor of said motion, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously, and with that, we will jump into staff reports. Item number 1, Wichita Fire Department, which is active outside as well, right?
We're always active. Lieutenant Attrip, Station 10, so District 1 in September had 942 calls for service. We had 527 medical calls, 22 fire calls, 105 calls of service, and then 288 calls for others. Pretty busy month for our district. Right now, we're reminding everybody, check your smoke detectors. Daylight savings time's coming up. Never hurts to do it early. It's fire prevention week 2, so you'll see a lot of crews out at the Ys and schools doing the stop, drop, and roll, get low and go with the kids. Wichita Hot is this Sunday and Saturday, so we're bringing in speakers from across the country, and we'll also have firemen from across the country attending this training. It's been going on for several years. It's one of the more well-known local, regional training that's put on. Should be a busy weekend for all of us. We have sites from everywhere from Derby to McPherson this year. 2 of our members are currently on their way back from responding to Florida and North Carolina for Hurricane Helene, and then we have 2 members currently en route to Florida for Hurricane Milton. And right now we have 7 individuals currently in the fire academy.
I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So, sound like you're really busy in September. Was September 2024 busier than prior Septembers? I mean, some context, or is just September just typically busy?
September, typically, I mean, it ebbs and flows. I don't know compared to previous years. It did seem that we had a little bit of an uptick call volume for my personal house. We did seem a little busier than normal, but that, you'll have your busy months and your slow months.
And then could you give a little more context to sending with local firefighters to these response, like hurricane response and so forth? Because I think that's fantastic, and I had no idea.
So we are members of the Kansas Task Force. There's task forces all around the region. They're in the state and the regional teams. Wichita is part of Task Force 5. And then there's other members that are part of Task Force 1, which is our national response team. The 2 members who went to Florida and North Carolina went as a Swiftwater team. And now the 2 members that are going down there for Florida for the response to Milton, they are going down as a task force leader and the comms individual. So we fill different roles on the task force, but that's as a state as a whole. So whatever Florida or wherever they're having the emergency, they'll send out a request for services, and states will respond, and we'll send members from across the state to help.
So is there training for your different tasks?
Yes, ma'am. You have to be certified in certain things. Like I'm a member of the Task Force 1 for a hazmat response.
Okay.
And then some of our chiefs are task force leaders. Some of our guys do the radios, do the comms. The 2 individuals there were Swiftwater, so they were doing all the boat operations and search instructors.
But then that has to be, somebody coordinates those folks when they get there.
Yes, that's the
Right.
task force leader. So that's
I
one of
see.
the individuals we sent, and he'll be running the Kansas team that's currently en route down there.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's a it's a 14-day deployment, and that doesn't include your travel, so I think the guys who are on their way back have been gone for 18 days roughly. So,
And then, but they still get paid,
yes,
okay, and then, so it's just the city's kind of contribution to help in other communities that are in crisis?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, good to know. It's terrific.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys work with the Civil Air Patrol at all? Do you even know what the Civil
I
Air
do not
Patrol
know
is?
the Civil Air Patrol. I know we work at the civil support team out of Topeka for hazmat incidences, or like they came down and they assisted us during River Fest. They helped us make sure that the parade area and everything was secure and safe. But yeah, the Civil Air, I'm not.
Well, just real quickly, the Civil Air Patrol is the official auxiliary of the US Air Force. But in Kansas, it's falls under the what do you call the domestic guard? Help me. National Guard, thank you.
We will work with them when we respond to the hurricanes or earthquakes, tornadoes, whatever the natural disasters. We work in conjunction with the National Guard, Army, who's ever on scene.
I was just thinking it might be good if they've got these cadets that could be trained in a lot of ways that you guys can
Just
follow.
thinking if it's a way to get me up on a Black Hawk, I'm in.
Exactly.
Not too much convincing.
No, say yes now.
So Fire Prevention Week, I just looked at my calendar, the 11th from 8 to 10 at Coffee Days and Larchers. I have members of our fire department there.
What date is that?
Friday, the 11th this week. From 8 to 10 at Coffee Days, which is on Douglas, and Larchers, which is next to the Belmont. Will you be there?
I will not. I will be off that day.
I have to call
Yeah.
you.
You know where to find me every third day.
All right, any questions for fire? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, boss.
All right, we'll jump into Wichita Police Department, Officer Stark.
Yes, so my plan was to come report a few stats to you, but with our new RMS system getting an update from the end of last week, they're still having problems pulling reports over right now, so I don't have any official stats. I know Patrol North, as of before this update a week and a half ago, we were trending downward for any of our Part 1 offenses, which is like ag assaults, robberies, burglaries, all of those are down over Patrol North, which is good. I do not have updates on this week, but as of a couple weeks ago, that's how it was before this update. That should be back up and running reports probably in the middle of this week. They were just not prepared for today. So what I am going to talk about is a little bit of Halloween safety for the viewers out there that may have some small children or families, because we are coming up on Halloween on the 31st. So let me pull that up real quick. So with Halloween safety, we know all of the children and parents are going to be out and about walking. We need to make sure that on the 31st, which is I believe a Thursday this year, to make sure we're ever vigilant as car drivers. With more kids and parents on the streets, we need to be aware that they are going to be crossing wherever they want to cross to get to the next house. They may not be paying quite as much attention, so we need to be ever vigilant while we're driving. As far as the kids and parents go, we need to make sure that we're wearing lights and reflective pieces of equipment. If it doesn't go with your costume, just wear something like a necklace or something that lights up so you can remain visible at night. We prefer costumes without masks, but nowadays that's very hard to do. So you have to wear a mask. Take it off every once in a while so you don't overheat. Check your candy. Make sure that when you're getting candy that it's still packaged correctly. It's not open and we're not eating any unsafe candy out there. Follow the crosswalks, street crossings where you can. Don't cross mid-block or have your kids dart out in the street, anything like that. Obviously, don't let your kids out by themselves, teenagers included. Don't let them out running around trick-or-treating on their own. Make sure a parent or an adult's with them to keep track of things. And then if there's any problems with that, make sure that you're calling 911. Enter driveway slowly out, coming in and out of parking lots, and then just being ever vigilant stoplights and stop signs and anywhere in the street if you have to be out. No more people are going to be out between the hours of 5:30 and 9:30 as well. Also, a few upcoming events that we have coming out. ICT Open Streets is this Sunday, October 13th. That'll run noon to 5. It's along Douglas. It will run from roughly Waco all the way up to just past Hillside. That all of that will be shut down. It'll be shut down early because of the prairie fire that runs through there in the morning. But then at noon, it'll be opened up to all the vendors. So come out and enjoy that. Enjoy Douglas being shut down and come out and see us and hang out with us. This past Friday, all of CP was assisting with the ribbon cutting at the new water plant facility and got to take tours along with a lot of the council members and mayor that were out there. So that's going to be a great asset to the city. All of CP has been for the last 2 weeks mandated to be out at the Textron strikes. I know you guys are all aware of the Textron strikes. So we're just out monitoring, making sure that both the citizens going in and on the streets are being safe, as well as the strikers are being safe and following all the laws. That is all I have as far as events and stuff that's going on in the streets. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for WPD?
I just have a quick question. You mentioned Halloween safety. Does Wichita have a history of unsafe candy events, like incidents?
None that I can recall, like it's been widely known. But it's just, you never know what we run across nowadays. Society has changed some. So you just have to be careful. It's just more of a be careful than us seeing it recently, especially now with fentanyl and everything being so prevalent. We'd hate to see a little kid get some of that fentanyl on them from somebody that was high and tried to give it out. So if it's not in its original packaging, I would just throw it away or get rid of it, and don't even run the risk of it being something that's not.
Any other questions?
Officer Stark, I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but I wanna give you the opportunity. Is Wichita Police Department still experiencing a shortage in police officers?
So we are currently, I think the last was about 64 down. We do, however, have 33 in this academy class. So we are short. Our detectives are short, and it goes all the way through the ranks. But keep in mind, we're trying to get caught up from the last 4 years of not having many hires in the academy class. So we were up to over 100 at one time we were short. So we're making it progress, but it takes a while because our academy is 23 weeks. So it's not like we're just turning them around in a couple of weeks we have new troops. It takes a while to get them trained to the policies and procedures. So every 23 weeks, we're trying to have classes of upwards of 30 to 40. So as long as we don't have any significant changes and retirements, we should get caught up hopefully in the next year or two.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Officer Stark.
Thank you.
We'll jump to item number 3. We got Parker from the Public Library.
Hello, everyone. I'm Parker Daniel from Wichita Public Library's Maya Angelou Northeast Branch, and I have some library updates. Construction is on track to begin on the 14th of this month. And on that same day, we will be closed system-wide for our in-service day. We will have a senior Wednesday program, Larry Hatterberg, a personal retrospective on the 9th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. at the Advanced Learning Library. We will have spooky stories for grown-ups on Friday, October the 18th from 7 to 9. We'll have local performers and actors reading scary stories. Next, we'll have a readathon challenge that's being piloted by our adult programming program. We're asking patrons to read 30 minutes each day until you have a total of 24 hours. You can track your reading with special bookmarks. You can read anything from newspapers, books, ebooks, audiobooks, reading to or with someone that also helps. And return your completed bookmarks to library staff and you'll be entered to win a book of your choice. It's a good opportunity. And then finally, we will have our Heart Healthy program. Let's Get Down with Blood Pressure. It's going to be here in this very room on Thursday, October the 24th from 2:30 to 4. We'll have a community health educator, Olga Lesnick, here to talk about factors contributing to high blood pressure, how to accurately track high blood pressure and management strategies. And attendees will also have a chance to win a $20 gift card if they complete a short survey afterward. It's a good opportunity, don't miss it. Did you have any questions?
Any questions for Parker?
On the reading log, can say I or someone come and pick up the bookmarks, or does the child have to come themselves?
It's for adults, and you can come to any of our locations and pick up a bookmark.
It's for adults, that's even better.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Got one.
I'm sorry.
When does it start?
The readathon?
Yeah.
That is a very good question, and I do not have an answer for you, but I will have an answer at our next meeting.
Okay, it's this month, October, I can look on the website, or?
I think this will be a seasonal thing, but I can definitely double check and give you an answer.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing you mentioned, what was that?
The Heart Healthy program?
Yeah, when does that start?
That's going to be Thursday, October the 24th at 2:30.
Is that at the library?
No, it's going to be right here in this room.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What's that comment? Is that for,
That's for me.
okay,
That's directly.
I can't.
No need to core me. Messages are right.
Thank you, Parker.
Um,
All right, jumping to item 4, Parks and Rec has submitted their report in your packet. A lot of good information there. Probably the main thing was just mention Open Streets held on Sunday, October 13th, 12 to 5. It's free. It's a lot of walking. If you are biking, just from personal experience, make sure your legs are in good shape. Going up Douglas or going east on Douglas can burn a lot of energy and a lot of calories. But it's a great time. Normally we have upwards of 20,000 people, maybe more than that out there. So
And also your brakes need to be really good and you need to know to grab front and back at the same time because people will do this right in front of you.
So great opportunity to get out, know your neighbors, enjoy our city. Definitely want to encourage you to go out there. It's always a good time. Jump to item number 6, board agenda updates, issues and reports. I think I started right last time. Start to my left, Joseph.
Yeah, so had the opportunity to attend the Kansas Health Foundation's Health Rise event. It is the annual event that kind of gives an outlook on the health status of Kansas. And we are ranked number 29 nationally. We used to be number 8. So I think it would behoove all of us to continue to spread the good news about what we need to do to beat New Hampshire. New Hampshire is number 1, ironically. So down with New Hampshire is what we're saying. Again, as Parker said, there's an event happening here about the heart health, which is the leading cause of death amongst women, particularly disproportionately impacts women of color. So please start there, encouraging people to get out. I'm encouraging them to walk, encouraging them to do all the things that helps us take New Hampshire down in the next couple of years, as well as, again, as I always like to say, supporting our small minority-owned businesses. Please do that. I know that there are a couple of events coming up in the next few months. And then tomorrow, Abby might be saying this, but there is an LGBTQ commerce event at Mocha's, I believe, tomorrow, starting at 7:30 to 9. where you can go out and meet the LGBTQ community, as well as supporting the LGBTQ businesses that contribute back to our economy. So those are all the events that I want to share.
Which one?
The Mocha's on, it's right across from the library, the downtown library.
Second Street.
Second Street, there we go. Come out, join the fun, get some good coffee, or if you don't drink coffee, they have other
Breakfast sandwich,
sandwiches.
really good.
Those are.
Yeah, the Rubens are good,
See, Rubens,
and the salads are good,
right on.
the drinks are good.
If you want a salad at
It's all-
8 and 9,
It's all good.
okay, right on. You'll be in good company then, regardless of what you want.
So it's in the morning.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
you know, I don't really have updates, but I have a lot of questions. Is this the forum for questions?
who are the questions
You.
Some of them to you, some of them in general,
Go Twilight.
to my section?
to your, wait till your section. Okay, I can do that. And then I have a comment, I guess. So the documenters have been asking me when we can get the agenda up. Because in the past, we were trying to get it on Thursday and Friday. And I understand that since we don't really have any zoning, wasn't quite as critical, so there wasn't any place to go look at. But if, would be helpful to them and actually to us if we could get them a little sooner. I know you're swamped, but maybe I can get some support or something. Cause I don't really understand, why they want that much in advance, but it's helpful to them and it's also helpful to us.
For sure.
And then I will wait. We're done.
Natalie,
Yes, there is a voter empowerment candidates forum on Sunday, October 13th at Tabernacle Bible Church. So 1817 North Volusia, and all federal, state, and local candidates have been invited. So that is 4 to 6. Be informed.
17th Volusia.
1817
Okay.
North Volusia.
yeah, right down the corner.
I'm sorry to interject. Can you repeat when that's happening again, please?
Yes, that is Sunday, October 13th from 4 to 6.
Thank you. Can you, one more, sorry, I have a little delay on my signal. Can you remind me, can I get the venue one more time? I'm just jotting it down to make my note. I'm sorry.
Tabernacle Bible Church, 1817 North Volusia.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mary Beth?
Not now.
Chelsea?
Yes, Cameron sent out an email with a concerned resident, her name's Kathleen, and I had the opportunity to talk to her about some of her concerns with the accessibility for her being physically disabled and ADA compliance in the community. Had a pretty good conversation with her. Pretty much her primary issue, and I also know this firsthand in my line of work, that such a difficulty with public transportation for people that are wheelchair bound or unable to access just the general transit system. Paratransit is offered here in the city of Wichita. And I send a lot of referrals to paratransit, but it's just a very limited number of people that they can support. And a lot of times those applications are overwhelming because people that have a disability have to take it to their primary care doctor to fill out the application, to state what kind of transportation they needed, so they can, and it's
And the scheduling.
overwhelming,
The
yes.
scheduling
Right.
is demanding.
And I know there's a significant wait list for people with disabilities to access paratransit. I mean, I have 2 residents in our residential services that have been on the wait list for 6 months or longer, just so they can get to and from their supported employment or their day service program. And it's just a constant struggle. And I understand that the city of Wichita's, is doing their best to figure this out. But I did link Kathleen up to several resources. I gave her the City of Wichita Transit Advisory Board contact information so she could reach out to them and maybe explain and share her story. And I plan on following up as well, because I also have you know, the same issues that I see with the people that we support with disabilities in this community. I also gave her the City of Wichita Transit staff directory, and there was a couple staff members that were designated for paratransit. And I noticed that there was a link for the network plan for the City of Wichita. And if you click it, it says, you know, this is a year-long project that was started in 2023. And in summer of this year, they were going to develop a draft for recommendations to kind of address these transportation issues in the city. And then fall 2024, they wanted to like finalize these recommendations. So I'm proposing, can we bring in somebody from the Wichita Transit Network from that plan to like kind of discuss where we're at with that, and how are we serving just our community in general, and but also people with disabilities. It was really sad to hear that, you know, Kathleen said she went to a show at Century 2 and inevitably got stranded at Century 2 because the show ended and there was no transportation to pick her up and bring her home. And so she was like there by herself, and it was getting late, and she didn't have a ride set up home, and paratransit closes at 5 o'clock. And, you know, Kathleen's like, I'm 34. I want to access the community just like everybody else. And that's disheartening. And I know that I see the same also being, you know, in the business, supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I actually have a residential home that is in District 1 with 6 residents, and we are always struggling with transportation resources. You know, these people should be able to access the community just like people without disabilities. So I think maybe just bringing somebody in and having those conversations. And then Kathleen also mentioned that, you know, she lives in District 1. She likes to go to the Starbucks and to, I think, Fuzzy's Tacos and all those places right off WSU campus. And they don't have like the buttons to even push to open the doors. And she doesn't have a grasp on her, you know, to her hands to open. She's in a powered wheelchair, and she's just really struggling with, you know, accessing these businesses that are franchise businesses, and you think they would have to be ADA compliant, right? So she started advocating and for herself and for others, specifically with Starbucks, I guess, up there, and just is having a hard time with anybody getting back with her to determine how that can be more accessible for her to enter these businesses that are close to her residence. And I don't know what we need to do next to support her, or I told her I would report this to you guys tonight. Maybe you guys would have some insight on where I can direct her. I don't know if that would be something we need to address with WSU to make their campus more accessible, or to have those stipulations or some sort of overlay that says, you know, we need to make this accessible for everybody if these businesses are going to be generally on campus, right? So that was a lot all to like put together as quickly as I could, but I was hoping I get the board's support on having the Wichita Transit Network or someone from that department come talk about.
So
That
I
meeting?
will reach out to Penny and
Okay.
see if she can get the transit network to show up as well as come out as well. She's our new director. And then I'll connect you. I know you showed her the transit advisory board, but Ben Blankley is the District 1 appointee. So I'll connect you with Ben, and then also Mia from the Access Advisory Board. She's the District 1 appointee. Maybe those two plus you can help, and they also can help advocate with WSU. Since that's state property, can't really do a whole lot, but we can have a conversation.
Okay, great.
Can I ask something, since you just mentioned that? I have been hearing a lot about folks these jocks that really ride bicycles, and turns out that some of them that the wheelchair people and the bicycle people are getting in cahoots. And apparently our streets are not very friendly to wheelchair, and they're concerned that even sometimes when there's multiple lights in a turning lane, you're at higher risk. And so these wheelchair people are crossing mid block because it's safer. They can look both ways and see who's coming, rather than not knowing who's going to be whizzing around this corner.
Where
And the guy that was talking to me was at the the, the group thing we meet down at the Orpheum. Joseph helped me. But anyway,
Just knows everybody.
No.
I don't know.
yeah. He knows
It's all
everything.
grass.
But, yeah, it's an art mixer was where we were talking. But they were talking about the east side. He said, you know, the northeast is just very unfriendly because you get all these, and I'm going, why are you in a wheelchair out when people are going to work? You know, schedule it at a different time. But they're going to work and they're close enough to take their chair.
I have to know where it's at though. So when I was on DAB, I had complaints from CPRF and the Timbers, which is around 21st and Baton. And I was able to work with Councilwoman Williams at the time to get the street light timer changed and 21st and Oliver. So if they don't say where, there's not much.
So I need to get that. I will get that. Yes, I will get that.
Councilmember Johnson, to Chelsea's point, one, I think Penny would be great to connect with. We were actually in a training together recently and had the chance to, Kathleen's email just so happened to come in at the same time. And I think she's super great, but also in Leadership Wichita, we learned about the multimodal plan. And so I wonder if there is anything in that plan or just that would be able to help with that. And I know there have been a few folks who've come to council meetings recently to talk about the blind and visually impaired and just the barriers that exist for the blind and visually impaired. I work downtown and I mean, I've seen verbatim the folks who work at Niche trying to cross the street and not even knowing when a car is coming. And I think the city did fix that where now the crosswalk speaks to you, but I think there are a lot of things that people just don't take into consideration now with an evolving diverse society, but I wonder if the multimodal plan may be helping with that in some way.
Yeah, I'll add it to my request to her.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Luana.
Piggyback just a little bit. I think we've talked about this before. I've worked with the seniors from Catholic Charities. Now they find jobs and they rely on the buses as well. But I remember the problem was the city had the funding. Nobody wanted to work as a bus driver. So that's still the problem. I remember we talked about even having second shift, but we couldn't fill first shift. So before we even think about second shift.
My last update is we were good on first shift. Now it's figuring out second shift. So I will have Penny talk more about this, but I just had a meeting with her. They are wrapping up the study information data-wise. Second shift came up and there's a conversation about when the second shift ends, per se. And I'm trying to work with her and others on what a larger presentation out will be. And I wanted that to be a discussion point. Timeframes I can remember, there's 4 of them, I can only think of 3, was 9:30 p.m., 10:30 p.m., or midnight, I think. Or something in between that, but midnight was the last one. And looking at the data, it wasn't broken down enough to say which one the public, those who responded said, but I want that to be a part of the broader conversation going forward. And just to keep everybody's expectations, unless some billionaire gives us a bunch of money. If we do second shift, it'll be on a pilot basis in certain areas. It won't be all over the city initially. But if it looks to work, then it would spread citywide.
And I think the thing with the seniors is probably like, what you're talking about, you have to like schedule a bus ride. And so we've had seniors that were almost stranded as well. So they would have to shorten their work schedule to make sure they can get home. So, you know, instead of getting off at 2:30, get off at 1:30, hoping the bus comes by 2:30. So that's a something. And then my other thing is that, okay, you have until Tuesday, August 15th to register to vote. So remember, if you moved, changed your name, or want to switch party affiliations, you have until the 15th if you want to vote in the November general election. So remember, your vote is your voice. So make sure that you can use your voice and make sure you're registered to vote.
I think I would piggyback on that, maybe even call the election office to make sure your polling site is your polling site.
Yes.
And make sure your name hasn't been kicked off the voter roll. it's just really important just to make sure that you are eligible to vote and you know where to go to vote. Voting by proxy is cool, but it's better to vote.
I think Laura Rainwater said that they're sending out one mailer per household is going out, because I think there are 25 polling locations that have been changed. So one new update mailer per household will go out. So check, yeah, I just, to Luana's point, I cannot uplift that enough to check your polling location, because there have been several changes, and it's, you don't want to show up on election day and vote provisionally. So, and when all is filled, vote early, because you
I
can
think
vote.
that 1 out of 3 voters
Correct.
polling stations would be changed.
25 new voting.
Yeah, yeah, so that's significant.
And they've changed some timing too on the early voting locations, like Urban League is one of those, like originally supposed to be 9 to 4, it's now 9 to 1.
Okay.
So just continue to check the county elections website.
Yeah.
Yep. When in doubt, call, because I get lots of calls on election day from people who polling location change, and I always give the number 660-7100. That is the election office. I also call and let them know that there's a problem in the polling site, but definitely call to make sure and verify. All right, online, I know there was at least 2.
I'd be asked to, let's start, you want me to read?
Yeah, I think Joseph mentioned it. You can go ahead and reread
Oh,
it.
that's,
With your eyes. Closed.
Are you
Proud of
ready?
Wichita.
Trying to say, because I got these gray hairs.
Proud of Wichita's LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce is hosting its second annual Inclusive Job Fair on October 17th from 3 to 7 at Grover's Labs. We're combining it with our Thirsty Third Thursday networking event. So if you're looking to get involved, this is an event you don't want to miss out on. Continues out for coffee, as Joseph said, is tomorrow morning from 7:30 to 9:30 at Mocha's. So if you're in the morning person, this is for you. Katie said October is a great month to make sure you're up to date on vaccines, flu, COVID, and other yuckies. There are many low to no cost community options. As a reminder, households may order free at-home COVID tests at https://covidtest.gov. Be well all. And then Katie Ross also said, check your status and polling locations here at https://myvote.voteks.org/voterview.
See, I can read all that.
I believe you.
And piggybacking on that, COVID is still a real thing. I know we don't talk about it a lot. Please make sure you're washing your hands, 30 seconds. If you don't feel well, social distance, stay home if you can. But it is still out there and numbers are up. But since it was politicized a few years ago, it's not talked about as much as it should be. All right, I think that was it.
I've got an update. Last month, we held the ACLU of Kansas board meeting, and I just wanted to highlight some of those for everyone. So, right now, talking about election protection, the ACLU of Kansas is preparing and anticipated challenges for the upcoming election. Their focus areas are in Wyandotte County, Sedgwick, Shawnee, and Ellis. They're also working on a campaign, Restore My Vote, for folks that have felonies on their record. A report should have been released a couple weeks ago. I haven't seen it though, on the 85,000 returning citizens in Kansas. Of those, 55,000 are eligible to vote today, but only a fraction have registered. More than 40,000 people cannot vote simply due to probation or parole being extended due to financial reasons. And then that disproportionately affects our Black males. Under the criminal legal reform, they are currently focusing on local bail reform, working with prosecutors in the community to push for change here in Sedgwick County. which in Sedgwick County is the target area because it accounts for the largest share of, or a large share of racial disparities in Kansas criminal justice system. So I just wanted to highlight those. I thought that they were important and relevant. Also, just to highlight that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and to be aware of that, maybe educate yourself on that, what resources we have in the city, and just to highlight that. That's all.
Thank you. Does
I have,
anybody-
Hey, yeah, I'm just sorry if I'm breaking up a bit with my signal, but wanted to interject on the paratransit discussion. Just from the initial discussion, it's great. I appreciate there's now a concerted effort to get these updates, and I get we're realistic as always on budget and available funding, but sometimes policy-wise, and we got to dig into this a bit more, we got to set some values and expectations and standards. And to me, the idea in 2024 that if a city is offering a paratransit service, it wouldn't be 24 hours is actually insulting. To offer it partially to individuals who are disabled, particularly for it to end at 5 p.m. So what, you can only work during normal hours and you're not expected to have a social life or do anything in the city as others do to be able to elevate your own quality of life and contribute to the local quality of life together. And so I bring that up saying it's not just a dream, a moonshot, in that I feel there are always opportunity costs with these budgets. And I feel that this is such a core need at the local level that when the city starts looking, when we start looking at these updates, I would be willing to look at routes with low ridership, things like that, and redirect services more to prioritize these paratransit needs that are the greatest needs of mobility in our society, in our local neighborhoods. And so, especially looking at avant-garde ways that some other cities have approached this with using on-demand automated booking, where folks kind of similar to rideshare can work more fluid shifts, especially overnight, to provide a more stripped down, but also still provide this service versus not. And there are test models for this in other cities that we should bring up. And so I do think I would just like to kind of put a line in the sand that if there is a way policy-wise and budget-wise to work this, and even if whether there's money there, as LaWanda said, or is there more money or money is to be redirected, and or both, where there is a clear need, where we are hearing anecdotally just really impactful, life-altering, disabling, the city is disabling individuals here in its lack of offering of this service and in the way it's curtailing. So it's good to hear that the hours are looking at things like that. But I'm just like, this is such a level one priority as we get into this more, that I would say redirect some services if there's a way to do that, where we could be willing to test it at a small level with maybe particularly individuals or groups or neighborhoods. 100%.
Cool. I'll make sure I share that as well before she comes. All right. If that's it on the updates, issues, and reports, we'll move to item 7, scheduled items. There are none. We move to item number 8, off agenda items. Is there anyone here who would like to talk about any issue that's not on our agenda? Please step forward. You can give your name and neighborhood or address if you feel comfortable.
My name is Susan Miner. I live at 303 Circle Drive. Thank you for this opportunity to provide some background on a zoning case that is scheduled for your agenda on November 4th, after being heard at the Metropolitan Planning Commission on October 24th. Many of you are familiar with the 2 previous cases regarding a proposed parking lot at Happiness Plaza at the corner of South Clifton and East Oakland Streets. Property owners within 200 feet of that proposed parking lot received a letter late last week notifying them that a new application has been filed with the planning department. This was possible once their application, this was possible once the applicant's lawsuit against city council over denial of their application last April was dismissed by the court. This new application is technically not for a zoning change from residential to commercial, but rather a conditional use for auxiliary parking, which allows commercial use on residential property. The technical difference in the zoning code, but effectively the same impact on the residential zone. When the case comes before you on the board, you'll have their application information and you'll hear their testimony. At present, I just want to give you a brief history of the case. In 2018, 3555 East Douglas Happiness Plaza was purchased by Edge Hill Investments, a privately held real estate investment company in Phoenix, owned by Ryan and Anthony Francisco, who grew up in Wichita, went to collegiate school and then KU in Phoenix. Their website states, our mission is to find commercial investment opportunities to mutually benefit owners. Along with that purchase in 2018, they bought the house at 123 South, which is immediately south of Happiness Plaza, and two businesses just west at 3429 East Douglas, where the Cross Creamery is, 3543 East Douglas, the beauty bar, which they include as part of Happiness Plaza. In 2019, the Franciscos and their partner, Tori Dingers, spoke to a small group of the College Hill Neighborhood Association, explaining that they were going to put in a wonderful restaurant that would be a great addition to College Hill, and they did not intend to change the neighborhood. However, when they explained their plan to the architect they invited to oversee the remodeling, they said it would include a market, a sandwich and coffee bar, and a basement speakeasy. He cautioned that they would have parking problems in that particular location and eventually declined to work with them. Since the Happiness Plaza lot was indeed too small for the parking ordinarily required for the restaurant, they saw it and in 2019 were granted a 22% reduction in what would ordinarily be required, stating that if it proved inadequate, they would use valet parking. Instead, when the Belmont restaurant opened in 2020 and customer parking did present problems blocking neighborhood driveways, their response in 2021 was to buy out the neighbors at 125 South Clifton and 3340 and to apply for a zoning change to turn those properties and the one they already owned at 123 into a parking lot. Numerous parking studies showed that their customers were not fully utilizing the parking lot space they already had. Instead, they preferred to park on the street. DAB 1 at that time voted in agreement with the planning department recommendation to deny their application. The week before city council was to vote on their case, they demolished the two Clifton houses, and on December 14th, 2021, council voted to deny their application. Having waited the required year before reapplying, in early 2023, they applied not for an actual zone change, but for a conditional use, similar to their current case. Counter to the planning department recommendation of denial, DAB 1 voted at that time to recommend approval. That application was denied by council last April. Now they have reapplied, essentially the same plan, parking lot on residential property adjacent to the homes of some of their neighbors. There's a brief recap of some of the actions of the applicants and their agents in these past two cases. Telling the neighborhood association they did not intend to change the neighborhood when they chose to demolish historic homes rather than utilize their available parking space. Promising to use valet parking if necessary and then refusing even when provided the name of the valet parking service. Failing to adequately inform their customers of their available parking space. Declining to pursue shared use of nearby existing parking lots, which was recommended by the car park consultants in their parking study report. Declining the offer to use parking lots at 3420 and 3750 East Douglas, both easily accessible by a stoplight equipped crosswalk in front of the Belmont. Claiming that it is unsafe for their customer to use the crosswalk, though many do, and it is deemed safe for use by school children. Demolishing the Clifton houses, blocking parking lot approval, failing to salvage any of the valuable architectural and decorative elements, or to mitigate the lead paint contamination. Leaving the empty lot overgrown with weeds and site until they were cited by the city to cut them. Letting trash accumulate over the site. Failing to repair the broken sidewalk after a pedestrian fell until they were cited by the city. Allowing the chain link fence to sag over the sidewalk until they were cited by the city. At the MAPC hearing last February 23rd, promising to relocate the remaining Oakland house on College Hill and claiming that the foundation was being poured that very day, when in fact the house remains in place, vacant, often accessed by vagrants because the fencing does not effectively close it off,
Ms. Minor,
and no foundation was
Ms. Minor.
poured.
I hate to say it, normally we give 5 minutes.
I have 2 sentences left. And filing an unmerited lawsuit against city council over denial of their case in April. I hope you'll take this information into account when you hear their case on November 4th.
Any questions for Ms. Minor? Seeing none, thank you. Any other individuals who have an item that is not on our agenda that they would like to share thoughts on?
Wow. Coach Tracy, C. Mason Senior CHD Boxing Club. I'm not sure how this works, understanding that district advisory boards, District 1 says where I live. I'm trying to, for 5 years, I've been in 2505 East 9th Street CHD Boxing Club as a youth advocate, coaching youth boxing, adult boxing, for the most part free for the last 5 years, with sustainable ways through grants, sponsorships, and various donation sorts. That's not really what it's about. It's about the individuals that come there, and the purpose of what I'm doing there is trying to reach one individual to avoid the pitfalls of life of crime, in particular violence. So one of the activities that we like to, that most of them like to participate in is basketball. And again, I've been there since 2019, I believe. And unfortunately, when we go down tomorrow, I park the basketball court split in half. So I don't know if I'm supposed to bring that to the dad, or I'm supposed to bring it, because I'm one of those ones that's illiterate until I'm not illiterate, okay, or ignorant until I'm not ignorant. So I wanted to bring it to before dad. Next step is to try to see where else I'm supposed to go, if somebody reach out to me, tell me where I'm going. Because we just left there about 30 minutes ago. That's why I'm dressed like this, feeling the grass. They pushed me in it on purpose. But anyways,
That's what you say.
true.
You got crossed.
True. Anyways, just because he's slow. anyways. So, I don't know if that's how this works. If it's not, let me know. Let me know where I need to do my research. I'm trying to learn to it, so.
Yeah, I'll be in touch with you. So that is a CIP project, out of the Parks Department. And I just have to see where it's at. So that whole park is gonna get redone at some point. I just don't know what year.
See, I didn't know if I remember talking about that for sure or not. I thought vaguely, but I know I just left there and then I was checking my Facebook. See, I said, well, Gab is down there. Let me jump on this pipe.
No, you can always come here, but it's in the CIP.
Yeah, I intended to make it anyways, but I didn't see any announcements for it. But anyways, I was out there, triple double street.
I don't see no video, so I don't believe it.
Video, you behind me, I know that.
So when you say the basketball court is split, where are you saying?
It has a crack from goalpost to goalpost. It's been there for 5 years. I thought maybe I remember hearing something about it. And I know once upon a time I thought about filling it in and leaving.
Yeah, it would just crack again. It needs, so we talked about that once we got the bathhouse painted, the table put in, there's supposed to be a community garden that goes in hopefully by next spring, a pollinator garden. And then equipment wise, I don't wanna say the year, but I think it was late 20s that we're looking at getting new equipment. So that whole playground equipment would get redone, and I believe the basketball court. I just don't know what year, so I'll get that to you.
Can it be caulked? I mean, you said filled in, but like if you just caulked, that would split so much, right? Or would it take too much? Is it an offset?
Yeah, it's the old tar. It's tar from like 1980. So
Is it displaced also where it,
No.
one end is, okay.
no,
so
it's even.
It's even, okay, all right.
It's even, it's just, they go put it on, you stick the foot in.
Oh, it's super wide. That would be a
Yes,
lot of
right.
caulk.
So is there actual website in there?
So it's in the budget book. You
No,
just
I'm
have
talking
to-
about, okay, good.
So it's in the, if you look at the city budget, in the parks projects or District 1 projects, it goes out 10 years. You'd be able to find it in that, but that's a lot of pages.
That's right.
So she was just showing me a picture from like Google Earth. And it looks like there are these radiating cracks that might be more of a problem if there's it's much more of a problem if the elevation is different on each side of the crack. The little
She's looking
side
at the
cracks.
basketball court. That's what
Mhm.
she's looking at it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're big cracks, so, I mean, but you can stick your
But
foot in and
but
not,
is the,
you talking about at the off level?
yeah,
No, I wouldn't say they are. I
And-
mean, cause I was thinking, again, I was thinking about filling them in. I was thinking about just filling some stuff in them, let them dry. and hoop
yeah,
them.
there are things that can be done on an emergency basis by volunteers, if it would be legit, that Carter's Water sells the stuff. Carter
Is that
Water sells
doable?
the stuff to fix it, if they're gonna be level.
Speaking as a city official, the liability that would be on anyone doing that.
We won't go there.
That's right. These youngsters is talking crazy, y'all.
How often are you there?
Shoot, we've been going twice a week now.
I wanna see the youngsters, cross you up.
Well, we waiting a long time. So, okay.
Yeah, I follow up.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Any other off agenda items? Seeing none,
I want to comment on what Kelsey was talking about briefly. I don't know if independent living center could be any benefit to them or if they know about that. Okay.
Thank you. I'll let Kathleen know that too.
all right, we'll move to item number 9, council member updates and announcements. One was said earlier, I don't have a lot of updates, but if you have questions, happy to answer. We did have our ribbon cutting for the Wichita Waterworks facility. the largest infrastructure project in our city's history. That was awesome. It was cool to see what was out there and being on the steering committee, seeing the impact we had, because one of the first things we said was we didn't want boring buildings, you know, at least put some color on there. So when you go by and you see the blue,
Where's that?
it's the new water treatment plant right across from the zoo.
Oh, okay.
2 of the 3 art pieces are installed. So along the pedestrian walkway, you'll see clouds. Those are benches, but pretty cool art pieces. And then the water drop right next to the facility that lights up at night. So if you go over there at night, it's pretty cool. The 3rd one's pretty tall. Won't tell you what it is. You'll see it, but it will be awesome as well. But definitely a great place to go. They also host meetings in the water treatment facility, so you can go in there and check that out. But it was great to see a lot of the folks who worked on the facility were there for a luncheon. We had some barbecue, which was good. And then we cut the ribbon. The EPA was here as well. So really exciting times. Glad to see that there. It will be fully operational come next April. It's in the testing phase right now. So we'll be seeing water going through that plant, testing all the systems, all the redundancy. Really excited about that. Once it is online, our current facility will basically be shut down and, depending on the council vote, potentially used in an emergency basis if something were to happen. Our hope and prayer is nothing ever does, but if something were to happen, hopefully we'd be able to use that facility to supply water to 500,000 people in this area if we needed to. October 28th, 6 p.m. Advanced Learning Library downtown. I am hosting a parking meeting about downtown parking and the plan. The management plan of downtown parking. Myself, city manager and assistant city manager Troy Anderson. Hope to see you all there. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, we're going to talk about what's next in the plan, what it actually is, and talk with a little more certainty than what we've heard before. So again, that's October the 28th.
Time?
The Advanced Learning Library at 6 p.m. And hope to see as many people there as possible who had questions and thoughts, but we'll get to some of the things we weren't able to get to before and talk that through. And that's the first of, I think, 2, maybe 3 evening meetings with one of us elected officials. Our next breakfast is going to be awesome. In November, Lindsay Banaka will be our guest, Director of Cultural Arts and Services. Great timing with all the conversations about public art that we are having as a council. You definitely want to be there to hear about the work she's doing, the cultural arts plan that council approved already, and what the future looks like, the opportunities that have been provided for local artists. All of that will be great. So she will be our next guest. Again, that's the first Saturday in November at 9:30 a.m. here at Atwater. And we always have a great breakfast full of pancakes, eggs, and sausage, coffee, and juices, all the stuff Michaela does not want us to have.
And
We
fruit,
have it.
sometimes there's fruit.
Sometimes there's fruit.
Yeah, there was fruit on Saturday.
There's a fruit grapes. But yeah, great breakfast. Hope to see you all there and to get our numbers back up for the breakfast. This last one was really awesome, having Jesse Romo, Director of Airports, as well as Heather Schrader, the new Vice President of Downtown Wichita, talking about their plans. So we always have great people to engage with. After November, I'll be sending out my invite to our state elected, so hopefully they can come here and we can talk to them before the session starts in January. So if you have things you want to see them work on or get some updates, that'd be a great breakfast. January, have confirmed Scott Wadle from planning, so all the zoning stuff we're talking about, how that works. He will be here and working on February right now. So me and Cameron will be finalizing that, but our next breakfast, again, first Saturday in November, Lindsay Banaka. I think I have one other person I'm waiting to confirm, but we do have her. And then lastly, I've been told by the city manager, all of the work that we have been doing around housing, quality of life should be coming to council next month. Expect a fight. It's gonna be a lot of stuff. And Councilmember Hoheisel and I are excited about it, but it's a lot. So next month, you'll see a lot of housing stuff coming before council. So with that, I will pause and see if there's any questions, comments. I know Twyla has a few for me.
Oh, Mayor.
Did I understand you to say that the current water system will be kept operational?
No, it would be shut down and it'll sit there. We're not tearing it down or
But if, then they could just, in an emergency, come turn it back on?
depending on the council vote, there's a few options council will have to consider. So I'm on that committee too, so that's why I'm not committing to an actual answer right now. There are options that would allow it to start back up within 24 hours. There are options that would allow it to start back up within 7 days. And we'll see which ones the council
Guess
chooses.
which costs more?
A little bit. Well, actually, the ones that take longer cost a little more, but they do more. But we'll see what council says.
On that, you said they hold events there?
Yes, so at the new administration building, they hold like meetings or DAB 5 has met there, DAB 6 has met there.
Oh, okay.
I think there was another organization in the neighborhood that met there as well.
Okay.
Mostly the surrounding folks.
So what's it officially called?
The Wichita Waterworks. www. What?
Okay, I did have an announcement, I forgot during the announcement time, and that folks who are interested in addressing city council during the public comment period, in the past, you had to sign up in advance. I think they went in almost 2 weeks in advance. 1 week, and now it's changed where you can sign up 24 hours, I think, in advance. Is it 24 hours? Or if all the slots aren't filled, you can just go ahead and come up and speak, which is a great enhancement. I think it adds opportunities for engagement that had not existed in the past. So good to know.
What's that for?
City council,
Oh, okay.
public agenda. Yeah, you're limited to 5 minutes.
That is a great promotion of how some people get what we're doing wrong. There were so many people that said we had nefarious reasons for trying to change public comment, but we were actually trying to make it easier. There are people on social media that said we were trying to take away your ability to talk to us, make it harder and talk at the end of the meeting, when it was always about maybe this is too restrictive. If something happens, somebody may want to talk to us immediately the next day and they can't. And then it doesn't make sense to do it 2 or 3 weeks out. So thank you.
Is it still 5 minutes? Did it go down to 3?
It's still 5 minutes. That was another thing that floated on social media.
And it's expanded because in the past it was limited to 3 slots, but now it can go up to 25 minutes, right? So theoretically, there could be 5 folks. So that's a terrific change. Then, so there's question, no zoning tonight, like all the times I've been on the board, this is like a first. That just happens sometimes.
It happens every now and then.
Okay.
So we have a public works presentation, but
Right.
maybe once or twice a year, we won't have a zone.
And I'm real curious when it comes to big staff changes at the city, like when we lost the parks director. And how does that work when there's coma, open meetings? So you guys just get as surprised as everybody else when there's something like that? Or how are you notified? And not that I'm looking for fault, but I just find that real curious, how you can work within those coma rules. And still there's a huge announcement that comes out.
Yeah, so it's 2 things. We don't meet about it as a group. Each of us has a weekly meeting with the city manager.
Okay.
So if the manager is thinking about taking an action, he would tell us individually in our meeting. And then at that point, we know, we don't talk about it. We just know at that point, we share our thoughts with the manager. And then the public hears about it. The other thing is we don't hire and fire, just the manager. So if we don't like what the manager's doing or we do like it, we let him know and he knows kind of where we feel on that. So we don't have a group meeting to say we're gonna do this. Unless it's something that needs to happen immediately and we would go into executive session at a meeting to talk about a personnel change or issue. we will be briefed in that moment about it. And then we will come out, again, since we don't hire a fire, we wouldn't take action. And then the public may hear an announcement some short time after that.
Thank you. So I was just curious, but then that brings up executive session. I attend quite a few city council meetings as I can, and it seems like lately there's been an increase. I haven't been tracking it over time, but the council goes into executive session at the end to talk about litigation. And that's something you've heard me speak about before, that there's no real transparency in what the city spends on litigation. It came up with the litigation here with Susan Minor. There was a lawsuit filed. What will it take? Do we just need more community voices to say, look, it's our money, we should know? And it's not gonna be limited. I mean, is it HR? Is it contracts, fighting language and contracts? Is it aggressive policing? We don't even know. We don't know the dollars. We don't know the categories. What's it gonna take to get transparency on this from city council?
It kind of depends on the detail you're looking for. So every settlement is approved in the consent agenda. You can
Right.
read those. You can count those amounts. I think the last one was 150,000. And that was in the consent agenda. Past that, a lot of the executive session conversation is updates, cost if we ask, legal strategy, and it kind of stays there, which is why we don't talk about it in the public. Attorney's fees and all of that could probably be Cora to separate that from the actual settlement. If you are looking to have that posted, it's hard to do it sometimes. I guess you could do a running ticker, because there are some cases that we may win and then there's an appeal filed, and so that cost becomes a different cost because we have to get our representation back. So some of that is a little complicated on how it would be posted. At one point, I don't know if it was you or somebody else who talked to me about it, I think there was a concern about some of the rates being charged and giving competitive advantages to other law firms. Well, I mean, like they raised the question. There was a conversation I had, because this comes up every year, and I'll ask different questions in different ways. Yeah, I think it depends on the specific piece you want. And then when we go into executive session, and oddly, I can't think of the language right now. But it's not always law enforcement. Sometimes it's other things. I have to think through how that could be broken down, or if you have some suggestions.
Well, yeah, I could certainly think about it. And I don't think, I mean, when you say, we could pour it, I could pour it, but I think it's more, this isn't a Twilight thing, it's a community thing. And from a cost, what it's costing to defend some cases, is the city making the right decision? Would it be easier just give them the money instead of spending, I don't know if we're spending millions? When there's no transparency, it just lets the imagination run.
I can say that we have a legal responsibility, especially with law enforcement, to defend them. Because that comment's come up before, and I don't disagree with it, but it was, well, why don't, if we're gonna spend this money on defense, why don't we just give this and settle, or try to make justice happen in some way, shape, or form. That case is done. So on the Finch case, because I was in the room with that, we had a responsibility to the officer to actually cover the officer's expenses, no matter what, whether we wanted to or not, due to, I forget the statute, but we just had to cover it. So in those cases, it may frustrate people, but there's a legal responsibility on the city side to actually cover an officer that acted in the line of duty at the time, because they were acting as an officer and not just as an individual. technically that same thing comes to us when there was somebody who wanted to sue me because of a fake news story about the terrible living conditions that I happened to show. And we determined legally I was acting within my legal powers as a council member and my duties to represent my constituency. And however far he would have took that lawsuit, we would have been paying to defend me in that case.
So that doesn't allow for settlement?
It could if the other party wants to settle.
Right, okay. I mean, that's helpful. Thank you. Following up, a few months ago, we had folks from the Racial Profiling Advisory Board here asking about the FOP contract. And I know we're just zooming up to the end of the year. And I don't know if there's any updates, how we can get transparency on that, you know, and it kind of goes hand in hand with, or maybe not, maybe it's a little too tangential, but the requirement to defend, I mean, I'm sure that's maybe part of the FOP, but is there gonna be any transparency, or is it just gonna be, it's gonna be presented, you know, we'll get a few weeks to look at it, if that long, and then you guys just, the city council just votes on it?
At the moment, you will have a few weeks, potentially days, because normally the agenda comes out Thursday. So either a few days or a couple weeks to review it before council votes on it. There was no interest in having a public open meeting about that, at least negotiating wise. And then for all the updates, I can't talk about that, but I don't know most of it because we're actually staying out of it as elected officials and allowing staff to handle it.
It just feels like when these things come out, there may be a small tweak or two, but the work is done. And there's just, I don't usually see much movement for what community input is. Granted, you're just one vote, you know, and this isn't a dig on you. But that kind of goes hand in hand on Jensen Hughes. Now, it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but the dashboard, you know, there's a lot of things incomplete, no current updates, and I understood that Jensen Hughes was kind of tied to the FOP, but I feel that has just been so stagnant.
So part of Jensen Hughes could be in the FOP contract, but a lot of it was administrative and would necessarily need to be in that. There was some disagreement on that statement that I think continues to be disagreement, but it looks to be administrative and we are working that as administrative unless something changes to stop that.
I think part of the frustration is that, particularly if it's not necessarily going to be tied to the FOP, then what's the deadlines? You know, that dashboard's been out there quite a while, and when doesn't appear to be a lot of movement, it just feels like it's just going to sit there, and we will have the community, the city would have spent a lot of money on something that doesn't really result in making change.
Yeah. I can check into what deadlines look like and see when the last time it was up there.
Okay. And then maybe these two things go hand in hand, but I haven't really heard back from the police department on the citation data analysis that shows that Black and brown citizens are stopped way out of proportion to the representation within the community. And in January, city manager said that they're coming out with, you know, measurements for WPD that we can see. If they're there, and I know at the last council meeting I asked about measurements, and Captain Moses said, yeah, we have them, but I don't know how easy it is or transparent for the community to get them. And I would think some community members are interested in measurements, maybe along community safety, like chases, excessive force, or Halloween incidents. And those might not be things that WPD would come up with. So where we can get some community input perhaps on police department measurements. I understand there's a lot of really great things going on, but if we don't know, we don't know. That's it.
Okay, I wrote that down. I will ask some of those questions and potentially see can give a presentation at some point.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Or I don't know, my guess is some of the people here would be interested in participating and helping define, or, you know, what we would like to see measured by WPD over time.
And if, what's the system that's been in use for 2 years, but,
Niche. Niche.
You know, the gunshot.
So Axon.
yeah. And if it's been in use for 2 years, like, what is the data showing us? Predictive policing, like, what has it predicted?
Are you talking about the shot
Well, because it's not called shots fired anymore.
detector?
Well, yeah, but it's the predictive policing, whatever the new name is being called.
Yeah, that whole program.
That whole
So the whole program is the real-time crime.
There you go, yeah.
And again, maybe this is a rumor, but allegedly it's been in use for 2 years. And so, you know, what has that data proven?
They have piloted it for a period of time. I can't remember if it's 2 years or not. They have piloted it. The examples they showed at the open houses this summer, which Twyla went to, showed it was very accurate when they had it. It's like one lieutenant, sergeant, captain, would go out and actually find casings where it said the shooting happened and no calls have been made. But it's not in full implementation yet, but we were looking at going that direction.
Because isn't that the one that said, if you have this in your neighborhood, then it's a predictor that crime is gonna happen?
They had some calculation. I don't remember the calculation.
So it would be nice to see like what those predictions said and then what is really happening. And is it, you know, if you have a tire shop, is it an area for crime? So it would be nice to, and I'm just using that one, that's the only one I can remember.
So
See
I agree with
correlation.
you and I will make it happen. The question is, if we do that in a public meeting at a dab or breakfast, or we host like a town hall with that, will other people in the public look at that and say, so all of these neighborhoods that may have these predictors are bad and I don't want to move over there or live there or do business there?
I mean, there has to be a reason that we're using this software, so.
I'm just asking because
Right.
I got into a long argument with somebody on social media telling me that Murdoch was the most dangerous neighborhood in the city of Wichita, more dangerous than parts of Chicago. And I was like, where did you get that from? And it was like a couple news articles, and then I showed them a link to show that it actually was one of the safest in Wichita.
So one of the programs I'm in is called the Neighboring Movement. I'm sure you- And so again, so if there's some issues in our neighborhoods that we should be aware of and we could maybe, you know, do something to influence those things, I think would be a good thing to know.
I'm happy to make it happen.
Then just for folks who are interested more on this real-time crime center, the chief is gonna be at the District 2 breakfast, 9 o'clock on this month, October 26th at the Regent, which is, I don't know, retirement home or, I don't know, senior living.
It's out of my district.
Okay, yeah, anyway, if you wanna go and learn,
Cause I think I was at one of the meetings you were at, I
could
believe.
be.
Was that the one in Metroplex?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yes.
that was the best one. Yours was the best.
District one?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll see about getting one of those scheduled. So are you all looking for DAB, town hall, or breakfast?
Whatever comes fastest. What about that?
Whatever comes the fastest, they can reach the most amount of people. Yeah.
Breakfast have been good. I couldn't attend. I was out of town. Was the breakfast well attended?
It was.
Great day.
Okay, well, I will keep this conversation going with y'all to figure that out. DAB is probably the fastest. That is a comprehensive report though, so we just need to track how many zoning cases we have, unless y'all wanna be here till midnight.
No, sir, like tonight, I think the chief, I
I hate to hold y'all up from Chiefs, but I do have a question, and particularly in relation to the news article that came out about the ordinances being drafted for the homelessness encampments. Is there, and again, hearsay, I want to be mindful of that. That's why I haven't said anything publicly, because sometimes we say things publicly that are just not true. But there is conversation that there are desires to potentially include arrest for folks who are houseless and not able to take down their encampments or do not take down their encampments in a particular time frame. Where is this ordinance at? What can we expect in regards to allowing the public to see these ordinances before they come out? Quite frankly, it's just disappointing to even hear that this may even be a possibility. I did send you an email, as well as all the council members, mayor and city manager, an email today, but I'm just curious, when can we expect as the public to review that ordinance?
So that is going to be at the discretion of the council member who's working on it.
And who is that?
I believe it's Councilmember Glasscock. I'm not 100% sure on that. He said he was leading this effort, but I don't know the details. I've heard some of the same things you have heard. So just process wise, I'll use the housing ordinance. So if you wanted to find that housing ordinance that we're talking about, you won't find it. It's not out yet. I haven't seen the final version. Process wise, when I see the final version, working with Councilmember Hoheisel, if we both are okay with it, we can direct that staff post it somewhere, or we post it and then you could read it. However long in between then and when the council meeting, when you hear it. If a council member chooses not to do that, working with legal, because you have attorney-client privilege, so legal can't disclose what another council member is doing to me unless they say that they can. And the same with me. So when I work on ordinances, I'll get to a point where I feel good about it, then I'll tell Jennifer, you can share this with the rest of the council for their review for whatever day we get it scheduled. So if that council member does not put that out, you can find it on the Thursday prior to the council meeting that it'll be heard. Unless they let the public know when it's coming beforehand. Sometimes I'll know a day, weeks in advance, but most of the time it's that point. So it's really up to the council member. And if they never say to put it out or share it with us and we share it out, then it'll be the Thursday before the day of the meeting.
Well, for what it's worth, and I hope you take this into consideration, but I hope really all of us take this into consideration. I mean, we heard today, police department is 60 down. There's 33 in the academy. That's considering 33 make it through the academy. The academy is 23 weeks long. This ordinance, I believe, is supposed to come to the bench at the end of October. The MAC is supposed to open, hopefully, considering all goes well, November, right before Thanksgiving. That if we're going to require houseless people to remove their encampments, which I get the argument about quality of life and economic development and the perceived, which is perceived and an assumption crime related to houseless folks, that there's a place for them to go. And with the MAC, again, I think folks hear shelter and assume anybody and everybody can go to shelter, but there is no barrier, low barrier. And so not everyone has the opportunity to go in shelter. And not everyone who is houseless is the profile that we depict. They're not, first of all, homelessness is not a character deficiency. It is a condition that many of us are one paycheck away from it. And so I think it's really important for us as a city to have a conversation about what is the compassionate and humane thing to do here. And it's not to arrest homelessness. And what strain is that going to put on law enforcement? What support are we going to provide to ensure that folks who are battling mental health crisis or substance abuse are receiving the support that they need to reintegrate into society? And quite frankly, like, how does this even align? If even an arrest is even in consideration of this ordinance, how does that align with our mission, our vision for the city of Wichita, and our values? And again, I've said it all along, and I'm going to say it again because I'm really passionate about this. Like, this is why it's so important to educate ourselves about the houseless community. As someone who has experienced homelessness myself, These are veterans who struggle from PTSD, who have served our country. These are individuals who are fleeing domestic violence relationships. These are LGBTQ youth who are kicked out of their homes and have no place to go. And I think if we get down to the humanity and the dignity of each individual, we would be careful and clear about the language that we use or even the steps we want to take to address this. I really don't care how folks feel about what I'm saying right now in regards to rubbing folks the wrong way, but I just truly believe that arresting houseless individuals for something that they simply may not be able to understand or process at the same rate that individuals who are blessed to be functional or in their right mind is just an inhumane thing. And so I hope that you will make it very clear that it is not okay that we're even having this discussion. And it's not in the spirit of Wichita to even have this discussion. And we need to just shut that down, quite frankly. I think there's a yes and we can have competing values. I understand that nobody wants this in their backyard. I live downtown, trust me, I get it. There's a yes and we can have quality of life and address this issue while being humane and seeing the face of God in every individual. And I don't necessarily think that the way that we've approached this so far and our tone and tenor has set that. So I just want to make that very clear. And I encourage all the DAB members to reach out to your council members, not just Councilmember Johnson, but all of them and the mayor. Because the more of us that reach out respectfully and meaningfully, of course, the more that they realize that we're paying attention. I just think there are bigger issues that, quite frankly, we should be paying attention to. But it seems very odd that there was one individual that came to council this last meeting and said, I don't feel comfortable running downtown. And it seems that that triggered the response to push this forward more quickly. And there are several issues in our city that people lift up all the time, including crime that impacts our youth, that we are asking nonprofit organizations to solve. But we're uncomfortable about the houseless, the least among us, and they can't even defend themselves, yet that seems to be the target of attack for many of us. Seems cowardice to me.
Well, I'll tell you now, I'm not even interested in doing anything on that because we don't have anywhere productive to take anybody. So I'm waiting to hear the presentation, but I kind of said it. But the guy that came to the meeting just really, it was frustrating, and that's why I asked him, so what would he have us to do? And there was no answer. And the challenge for me is that I think folks don't want to see the challenges our society provides folks who are struggling. They'd rather run along the river and not see somebody in their house, walk through a park and not see a tent. And those are all reminders that we can do better as a society to me. So I'm not supportive of doing anything until we have the MAC, but I said I'm open to seeing what it looks like. And even after we have the MAC, we need to make sure everything works before taking someone's belongings, trying to force them into a space. We heard last year, even with the emergency shelter, that some folks who never went to that shelter just don't trust shelters. So how do we build trust with people that they would even want to come into the MAC? Just because it's nice and new doesn't mean people want to go there. So we got a lot of work to do. I don't think trying to arrest our way out of that is going to work. And to be honest, I'm waiting on the official presentation, but it's been said that even if you arrest somebody who's unhoused, by the time you get done with your paperwork, they'll be back on the street. So what was the point?
Without a job and less opportunity for
and more
housing.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So when that comes up, if you all want to come down to the council, you don't even have to sign up for the public agenda. You can speak for 5 minutes. If we ask you a question, you'll get more than 5 minutes. You can let us know what you think about it. I'm happy to hear anyone, but sometimes I just tell folks, I'm honestly not interested in moving forward with that unless we have a system that people trust and somewhere to go and where people can really get help. And we don't even have our transitional housing piece done yet. And to me, the most important thing is to get somebody stable, help them with skills and tools, get them housed, make sure they understand what it means to be housed, and continue to support. It's not a here's a place to go and the key. It's What else do you need? How can I support you? What are some other ways we can help? So I appreciate that.
You said like when it comes up, a more robust search engine within the city website would be so helpful. Because when I'm trying, or to be able to subscribe to stuff that would come to us automatically. Because if you go through the Thursday packet, you know, to find what you're looking for, and so, okay, it's not gonna be this week, or then it's not, is it next week? But just a really meaningful, robust research for the PDFs would really be helpful. I mean, I know you can research, do a search, word find like one PDF at a time, but that is tedious.
Yeah, I feel like I'll look, because we had talked about that at one point, a sign up for agendas, because we had
Yes.
somebody else ask about that. I'll look into that. I thought we did it, but I'll make
And
sure.
not just agendas, you know, I might find I'm interested in, I don't know, the Parks Department stuff, and so I want that stuff to come to me via email or something, you know, we could subscribe to different things instead of having to go get it. You could potentially increase engagement if it came.
I think that's a great idea. You had something?
Yes, the person that left the Parks Board, what was his name?
The director, Troy Houghton.
Oh, okay. Did he come and talk just 2 months ago or something here?
Yeah.
That one, okay.
Well, Reggie was here. Reggie was the superintendent. Now he's the interim. Troy came here. It was some months back, but he was doing the presentation about the Brewers Center. I forget how many months ago that
Okay,
was.
yeah, okay, thank you. And then listening to Joseph, you know, I was thinking in my head, more funding, because the work with, several things, some of the people I work with on a daily basis. We work with the hot team. And we don't have funding for that, we don't have funding for that, we don't have funding for that, we don't have funding for that. We wanna do that, we wanna help, we don't have funding for that. So, but that's big, you know. More, and then I was thinking about the MAC happening. So, I know people, I wouldn't either, but I know people that when we check them in, they don't wanna let go of their personal belongings, that's everything they have. It could be a blanket, but we have to wash it for our policy because, you know, all kinds of reasons, we have to wash something before we could let them have it. We just have to go through the process of, this is our policy, we have to wash this, and then you can use it. So they don't wanna, you know, a lot of times that's a problem, so they decide not to get help.
Yeah.
So how is the MAC gonna handle that, or situations similar to that?
We're gonna have compassionate, understanding people that get those jobs and can work through that. And we have to be real intentional about it. There are people who will take jobs just for the paycheck, and those can't be the folks that work there at the MAC.
Also, so if they don't wanna allow us to wash something, a pillow or a stuffed animal or their personal blanket, we say, it's that, or we can bag it and we can lock it in the closet for your safety, and you get it when you're leaving. But if they don't wanna do one of those two things, they leave. So what else can the MAC do?
Well, I mean, it's not here yet, and everything I've been saying, I know what Councilmember Holhouse has been saying, and Vice Mayor Ballard is making sure that we are understanding of people and we can work with them and understand what it means to have their belongings. And, you know, one of the things that I've heard will be in this ordinance is defining what is important or significant for somebody, and I don't think we can do that unless we're that person. So it's a lot of, there's gonna be a lot of conversation and training that we have to do, and
Where's the training gonna come from? Who's doing the training?
we still are figuring all those pieces out. Our main focus honestly is getting that emergency winter shelter open before Thanksgiving. The MAC should be finished sometime, I believe, in April. And between getting that emergency shelter open, which is our #1 focus right now, we're trying to figure out what that looks like. There'll probably be some form of board of directors that oversees what that looks like, but trying to work with people in the community. The young lady that keeps coming to council, Donna Castillo, I think, you know, she has some really good suggestions, but my hope is we have more passionate, understanding people.
Evidence-based as well. So do you?
Evidence base gets a little iffy sometimes. That's not every demographic, but
That's
something
true, but
that
that's
is
everything.
compassionate for people.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, thank you. But do you ever tour the URM when it's full of people, of men?
I have.
Oh,
I've done that twice.
Have
Matter
you
of fact, when we went, they were, the culinary class, which I can't remember if they started back, they cooked us lunch.
okay.
So we went in and talked to everybody, their experiences. We continued to talk about coming to Atwater. So if they needed a
Outside
place
of
to
the
go.
culinary class, like not the ones in the culinary training, but just the people staying at the shelter?
Yeah, we talked to everybody.
Okay.
So the culinary folks made our food that day.
Right,
But we toured the whole facility. We went to where they were going downtown. We came back. I did that twice under two different directors. And then again, the connection back here to Atwater, some of those gentlemen, like, you wanna get in shape, we got a gym. Come in here, we'll work it out. We'll get somebody to donate some money so you can do it for free. You got-
They have to walk, right, or the city bus, and they don't always have money. URM took their bus transportation from the open door, Second and Topeka way a couple years ago, right? Do we know, are they just not gonna put that back?
I don't know. I haven't talked to URM about that.
The people that I engage with that have to stay, or that stay at the URM, what was the feedback you got from all the people that you talked to at those two times? How long ago was that?
One was 2019, one was 2021 or 2022.
Okay, what was some of the feedback?
The feedback on the first one was very positive. All the gentlemen I spoke to, one that just woke up, was just talking about his dedication to wanting to be better. He felt like it was great there. He loved the spiritual aspect. He loved the resources and connections that he had. He was excited for, this one was before they had opened that new housing piece. He was excited for that. He felt like he was well resourced. His friends he had made that were in there were doing well. I met another guy who didn't necessarily like all the religious piece, but that was his way to kind of get the help that he needed. And he used to actually come here every day to use the computer. There was another gentleman who just said he was keeping his head down and working the program, actually got a job over at Tops, the restaurant that was open for a little while. He was one of the best employees they had. He always hooks you up with a little extra meat too. Second time I went back, I didn't have as much time as I did the first time. And I talked to people who they were complaining about transit. They were complaining about transit and having to walk up and down Hillside to catch the 21st Street bus. But still overall, pretty supportive of what was happening there.
I've never heard those types of comments from people that stay there. That's not what I hear. I hear about all the drugs in there. I hear about all the fights. I hear about all the disrespect. And I know URM is doing everything. I suppose they're doing everything they can to provide those services, right? But the environment, I only hear about the negative environment of the men that go there. I've never heard anything slightly positive.
I'm not surprised with me. I'm also in there with some of the more important folks. I'm not just in there by myself. So I probably will hear some good things, but I think every space is gonna have challenges.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's still no women's shelter, single women's shelter. Or, is it St. Anthony's House for Families, but there's no there's 2 DV shelters, that's it. And everything is full, the inn, we can't get anyone into the inn or the DV shelter, Salvation Army is gone. We can't get anyone into anyone on a daily basis. call multiple times a day. Can't get anyone in anywhere because it's so full and no single woman shelter.
You highlight all the issues that we face, and unfortunately, there's only so much political willingness to fund those types of things. You have $4 billion in the state legislature. Where are they at? You have, the county's working with us on a few things, but when you have a state that has all of that, a state that has cut almost 6,000 mental health beds since the 90s, but now you have all of this extra resource, but not willing to put it into things like that. And you look at who's up there, the people who hold the purse strings and what are their concerns. It's always a problem. And then even here, there's some private philanthropy that helps, but honestly, we could be doing more. When you look at the MAC, we're putting, I think, $6 million towards operations over the next few years, plus all the money we've been able to get towards getting it acquired and built out and all of that. And then the question is, what else are we gonna do? We've been needing women's shelters for quite some time. And especially a lot of the things I hear, some usually partner type violence, and there's nothing I can do. I mean, I reach out to WPD and then there's nowhere to take these ladies. You see Facebook posts of people reaching out, trying to find an open room for somebody. Like, there's a lot of need out there. And again, priorities of the legislature. When you have $4 billion extra dollars, I would think that those are some things you can invest in. I think you can make one-time investments in infrastructure and let us try to figure out with private philanthropy what operations looks like. But fortunately, that's not what we do. We want to cut taxes for wealthy people.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Johnson, if I may, if you feel comfortable, I would just encourage you to email that and share that with council members and the mayor. Again, we've not seen the ordinance. We don't know I don't know what's in there. I don't know what is in there. But again, I think inaction is not an option, right? Because it is an issue. And I want to honor that there is a quality of life challenge here. And
Thank you
right?
for sharing.
And there has to be a reasonable response. And I think what are the transitional housing options that are available? I think even the MAC, I recently learned, if you have children, that is going to be a challenge for you to get into that MAC. And so now you have parents who will have to decide, do I bring my children with me or do I enter? And I can't imagine making that choice, right?
What do you mean?
So some of these shelters are no barrier, low barrier, et cetera, and some of them don't allow family.
Right.
They only allow the individual or adults. And so you're running into an issue where you and your children or
Right.
child are houseless.
Right.
Some shelters say we only have enough occupancy, or we have a policy where it can only be you and not your children.
Right.
I think LGBTQ youth run into the same thing in this city where there are some shelters
There's
who
not
kind of
that.
break their policy
There's
and
not.
create space for them, but there is officially not a place essentially for them to go. When we did the point in time count, I mean, there were 19-year-olds out on the streets, and we asked kind of what led to this, and they're like, I got kicked out of my parents' home. That is the true reality that I don't think folks understand, because there's a lack of proximity in the picture we paint in our mind of what the profile of an unhoused person is. It's just not accurate.
And thank you, and I'm not saying this well, but I wanna say something like, if it doesn't affect me personally, it's not happening, for example.
Or we don't want it in our backyard, so it needs
Right.
to go somewhere else.
Right, and I'm not gonna look at it, or I'm not gonna deal with it, cause it's not me.
Right.
So if it's not in my face, I'm not gonna touch it.
Thanks
It's
for
not
sharing.
real, it's not happening. Blinders.
Appreciate it.
There you go. All right. Anything else for me? All right, we'll move to our final item, new business, Public Works. Climate Action Plan. Thanks for sticking with us through all the discussion.
No, it was so I need stuff to listen to. I was like, yeah. I'll introduce myself while we're getting the slides up. I sound like I've met a lot of you. My name's Ethan Kershaw. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Public Works and Utilities Department. I've been at the city for about a year now. I've been working with the Sustainability Integration Board on this project, some other city staff, trying to work interdepartmentally as well.
Ethan, what's your email address? I mean,
Sure,
I-
it's-
Yeah,
Yeah, it's E Kershaw, and that's KERSHAW at wichita.gov. We also just made a sustainability email address for the city, so it's sustainability@wichita.gov, so that one also works. This file.
Yes.
you're thinking it's. It's just something.
Yeah, I think that. All right, yeah, so to give a little more background kind of on how this plan's come into being, there's a lot of information I'm gonna try to cover because it's been about a year of work. And right now we're just getting a draft out there to start getting more public engagement with and more public comment and kind of hear what people in the community have to say about it, because we've already talked to the Sustainability Integration Board about it. But if you haven't heard of that board, it's a board that was created back in 2021 to advise the city council, city staff on sustainability matters. And collaborate with residents and schools, lots of other things. The representative for District 1 is Lori Lawrence. I think she's been on the board for the entirety of the she knows a lot about a couple years as well. Going into creating a climate action plan for Wichita, I looked to kind of what other cities have been doing, kind of how they put together their plans. What different resources like the Carbon Disclosure Project kind of set as the standard for what needs to be building up towards a climate action plan. So looking at a
What's
few.
that standard? What's the name of that standard? The carbon what?
Oh,
standard?
the Carbon Disclosure Project, CDP. We report to them yearly.
Okay.
So we get graded by them. We get a letter grade each year. I believe last year was a C. And so we're working to bring that up, and this is one step in that process. And so two kind of baseline studies that go towards any climate action plan are a climate risk and vulnerability assessment to kind of identify issues that your community is going to be facing, different social and physical vulnerabilities that might be in place, and a greenhouse gas inventory to kind of identify where different greenhouse gas emissions are coming from in the community and from the government operations in your city. And you go to the next slide. So looking at climate risk and vulnerability first in Wichita, there's vulnerable groups and communities that you guys have actually kind of talked about today already. We face issues like extreme heat, flooding, severe storms, wind and tornadoes, as many cities in the Midwest do, hail, and of course drought, which we're facing right now. This is a map symbolizing some data from the EPA. This is from their Climate and Environmental Justice Screening Tool, or CJEST. Those dark shaded blue census tracts are areas in the city that face either both kind of an economic barrier in some way, so that's like low income level, high unemployment, other economic factors like that, along with a climate related factor in some way. It kind of varies what those categories are for each census tract, but in general, it's things around energy, health, housing, legacy pollution and legacy pollution sites kind of affecting an area, transportation, water and wastewater, and it can also be around workforce development and the EPA standards. So these are used for identifying areas that can receive grant funding from the Justice 40 initiative. So we use it for our grant applications that way. And it also helps to kind of identify some of the issues that we're facing that we're hearing from people and that is supported by data that is put together by the EPA. In District One, some of the issues include like high energy costs, high housing costs. You can see there's a decent number of census tracts in this area that are facing a lot of different issues. Some of those also kind of revolve around the highway going right through, so transportation being in proximity to traffic at high volumes is also an issue that's considered in this data.
So are all those little squares census tracts? Is that what they are? Or are
Yeah.
they, okay, I guess do they
Yeah.
have numbers?
Yes, they are numbered. I do have actually a document where I kind of listed out the numbers, so I could provide those at some point as well if you guys are interested in learning more about those. But this is also publicly available from the EPA. And you can kind of interact with the map online. It'll show you the different categories that are, you can even see. A lot of times if you don't hit the 90th percentile, you're not technically counted. So a lot of these areas might even be close to being included, but they just don't quite hit that national percentile threshold.
What is that?
What?
In comparison to other census tracts. So there's a lot of different measures included here, but for one that I see a lot, which highlights is energy cost. So paying like a large portion of your energy bill out of your income.
So 90th percentile, give me, for instance, or context for that. Like I
Just-
pay 90% more than everybody else, that can't be it.
At least in comparison, to the rest of the country. Yeah. So, I encourage you guys to check out the data set. Like those kind of questions, I don't have off the top of my head answers for it, but yeah, I saw a few.
What is the ICT? Lower.
Oh, that's the airport, I believe.
Oh, okay, that makes, sorry, thank you, that makes sense.
Another aspect of this controversy water data assessment was already done a few years ago. The NASA heat mapping study that kind of looked at the tree canopy, looked at different temperatures in the city and comparing overnight and during the day. So some areas in the city tend to cool down more than others at night due to things like having more trees or having less concrete surfaces in buildings. So this kind of demonstrates that as well. You can see it overlaps with some of those same areas highlighted on the EPA data. The purple is the highest exposure and highest vulnerability to heat risk. So these come in especially on those hot summer nights when it doesn't really cool down. It stays 80, 90 degrees and people need somewhere safe to go, somewhere that can hopefully be air conditioned. And then the last section I would highlight on this, there's a lot more of this included in the draft climate action plan that's available online. And I brought some printed copies I'll pass around afterwards, but these are projected changes in total annual precipitation. Since we're talking about drought right now, we're in a very long dry spell at the moment. And precipitation is always a bit tricky to predict, but in terms of longer term trends over the next 50 to 100 years, Wichita is kind of in between the wetter eastern US and the drier western United States. You can see the darker yellow and brown kind of loops up towards Wichita and includes it in some of these maps and doesn't in others. We're probably going to be looking at drier summers in general and wetter winters and probably less total precipitation events, but maybe more extreme events when it does happen. So a lot of rain at once. We've seen a few storms like that this year. And just different changes in precipitation. We also have to take that into account for our water supply in the future. So that was all the information I'm going to include for now about the climate risk and vulnerability assessment. Looking at that other key piece I mentioned before was a greenhouse gas inventory. There's a full report on this available on the city website. If you look up sustainability, you'll be able to find all these reports and information pretty easily. But I can also send them to you directly if you are interested. This compares, so LGO emissions, that's local government operations. This is just percentages. The total amounts are very different. The local government operations is a very small number compared to the total community-wide emissions that I estimated. But local government, you can see that solid waste facilities is a big chunk of that. A lot of that's due to the Berks landfill already having a lot of waste at it, so a lot of methane is always coming up from there. But our buildings and facilities are the next biggest category, and that's true as well for community-wide emissions. If you're looking at residential energy and commercial energy, those are pretty much all just buildings. That's electricity and natural gas. And then you can also see for community transportation and mobile sources is another big category. But we use this information to kind of identify which areas to maybe focus on in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and then identifying maybe what policies or actions might be most beneficial to propose to help reduce those numbers. Now to the actual overview of the draft climate action plan that I'm bringing to you all today. And we're just getting feedback on it right now, but this was put together, as I mentioned, with the Sustainable Integration Board. They've been working on this for several months now. They put together a vision and a few key goals and targets, and then identified some focus areas for categorizing different actions for policy. So the main goals and targets that we're looking at are reducing emissions and adapting to a changing climate, also known as mitigation. They're kind of the two big categories for a lot of climate action. And those include some community-wide targets and some targets for government operations as well, to kind of bring balance to those two categories. And then the focus areas that have, at least so far, been identified and we've been categorizing different policies and actions into are buildings and homes, energy supply and distribution, natural resources, so that includes green spaces, parks and waters, transportation and land use, and waste management and reduction. And I'm going to go into each of those focus areas on the next 5 slides and talk a little bit more about those. Buildings and homes, I'm not going to read all the goals we have included there. They're all included in the draft action plan as well, but they offer some particular percentages and years that we're proposing, at least to start with. But I'll have some city actions and some opportunities for the community to take part. Energy efficiency improvements, looking at LED lighting and installation. That's one that's easy to make money back on because you're saving a lot on energy over time, and they're much more efficient than the old lighting that we had in place in some places. The fire stations just got these put in a couple of years ago, so we've got LED lighting in basically all the fire stations, as well as the parking garages. Retrofitting and then upgrading city facilities is an easy one to look at energy usage and try to find ways to make our buildings more efficient, and also save money on utilities. That's kind of the double bonus with this. So some of the same ideas apply for community that wants to take part in this. There's a lot of rebate and tax credit programs for home appliances that are coming out in the next year. The Department of Energy is going to be pushing a lot through the states. So I believe it's the Kansas Corporation Commission that is going to be actually overseeing the tax rebates for Kansas, and those will be available starting next year. It's going to be a lot of different appliances, including some different kinds of HVAC systems and other electronic appliances. We're also going to be offering weatherization assistance. The state already does this for low-income individuals, but the city is going to be supplementing a local program from the South Central Kansas Economic Development District. They already offer some of this, and so we're going to be using some grant funding that we received to supplement their work and make it possible for them to make repairs to houses beforehand. So maybe they weren't able to access this weatherization assistance beforehand because they would have needed too much money spent on actually getting the home ready to be weatherized. And this will help fund some of those. I think for about 20 households in Wichita, we're going to be able to fund it. And then, yeah, generally just saving on energy costs. That's the big thing.
On this though, the goal for the city is only a 15% reduction, but I must be misreading this, but you expect us as residents to realize a 50% reduction. That seems like not right. A higher standard for us versus the city.
No, that's a good question. So the reason that these numbers are proposed and look so different is kind of the projections that I was able to do through our ICLEI provider that did the greenhouse gas inventory. So the city actually has made a lot of the simple energy emissions reductions for building emissions at least. You know, I'll have to take another look at why I chose 15% because I want to say that we would be hitting higher than that already because we are paying for our electricity to be powered by wind. And then the first graph that I showed, we're not including the wind energy in that. So I'll have to take another look at the 15% number and make sure why I put that. The 50% though, I think is the overall goal. So more than likely it would be moving that number up to 50% for the city, just because a lot of this is electricity based. So Evergy's set their own goals for making their electricity a lot cleaner and a lot less usage of coal. So they're not going to be requiring a lot of effort necessarily, and if citizens decide to make maybe some energy efficiency improvements that will save them money anyway, Evergy's hopefully going to live up to their goals and be able to provide a lot cleaner electricity for Kansas going into the next 10 to 20 years.
So I'm really happy to see that you have goals, but I guess we'll need to know what the baseline is, right? And then how are you going to report to the community our progress on the goals? And I assume also you'll want them to be incremental, right? Year one, we're not gonna get 50% reduction. So what's the end date, for reaching these goals? Or maybe this is an annual goal. I don't know, but a little more around that, to communicate to folks
Yeah,
would be helpful.
and I think it's included in the draft plan. I just don't think it's on this slide, the actual like end dates for these goals.
Okay.
Because yeah, that is a good point. We do want to be reporting on this. With the greenhouse gas inventory that I mentioned, that first report kind of covers the baseline. And we would be doing another greenhouse gas inventory every 4 to 5 years to see our progress at both the city and the community, kind of estimating based on the numbers we get there. It takes a long time to get information from utilities on a lot of things. So it took me about 3 months to put together that inventory. So it won't be something we're able to do every year,
Sure.
but every few years, yeah, that would, and then we would release that data to help show the progress as we're.
No, I would say, I don't know, the data should be done annually for darn sure, because apparently there's gonna be a budget for this program, right?
We
the
have
city?
not, no, that would require the city council, I believe, to vote to allocate budget to this, or the departmental decision being made. There's not.
So you're doing all
proposed
this
budget,
now
so.
with no budget?
This plan is to outline opportunities for funding from grants.
Okay, so it's only gonna be funded by grants.
That is all I've got for now. I've not secured any other budget for this at this time.
And then just to go back to one thing, you said you have funds for weatherization for just 20 houses?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a drop in the bucket.
yeah, I can just say that's how far that they were able to take the funds that we were allocated by the Department of Energy. There's more information actually on that coming up on our website. I think next week it'll be updated. But there's some basic information released by the Department of Energy on kind of the grant formula allocation, what projects it's going to, because it's going to a few different projects, but that's one of them.
I'd like to know what kind of ideas you're looking at in how you're going to promote energy efficiency and weatherization programs, and how you're going to encourage investment in commercial. What kind of tools are you looking at to achieve those goals?
Sure. Are you talking about for then residential and for commercial?
Whatever that represents.
Okay.
Ag, you're it.
Yeah. So I think part of it will be providing educational resources. A lot of this has already been done either by the DOE or by the state of Kansas. They've been able to put together information. It's being able to communicate that with the community. So I'd like to use our Sustainability Integration Board, kind of have them be some messengers out in the community. We have our website as well that we can keep updates on. I've made some community resource pages on our sustainability pages website now. It's been updated a lot since the last year, and I'm trying to put together different.
So I'm just really wanting to hear a little bit more about the outreach into the community.
Well, currently it is just me and one other employee working on this.
So the websites.
So the website is what I've got right now. I have been working on a grant application that would provide to us to partner with a nonprofit that would then do a lot of this community outreach. But if that grant doesn't go through, I wouldn't have any other specific plans aside from reaching out to boards as we're doing now, and kind of offering this opportunity for us to share this information as best we can.
And you will be sharing this with all the DABs?
So on the promote energy efficiency, you talked about 20 homes. Is SCED gonna identify the homes and then you just provide the funding?
Yeah, we are sub-allocating to SCED, so SCED's gonna be.
Okay. They're actually good programs.
Okay, next category was energy supply and distribution. So this is something that's not really in the hands of the city as much, since we don't do our own electric utility. It's a private entity, so we've set some goals. And one we do have is renewable energy for city operations. That is something we can control in the current contract we've got with the Ponderosa Wind Farm. And hopefully looking at some other sites for solar energy. This as well is some opportunities for rebates and tax credits. There's a lot of solar tax credits out right now that actually nonprofits and governmental organizations can access. thanks to a new elective pay program. So part of what I've been trying to do is gather a lot of this information on funding available and start pushing that out to community members. I'm trying to collect some of that on our website, but also communicating it to our sustainability board and trying to reach out to you all now. Natural resources, so this is our green space and water. There's a lot of goals here because it's a rather big category, but I know that the parks and trees are something that comes up a lot in Wichita and that a lot of people care about. So we've tried to set some goals around that using at least what data we have on it. Looking at continuing sort of our water conservation efforts, implementing the tree canopy policy that was passed last year, and ensuring that we've got a stable water supply in the coming years. The state of Kansas is doing a lot of work around that right now too, so trying to connect with them as best we can as well. And yeah, kind of working with some other groups as well. So the Food and Farm Council has done a lot of work on food accessibility and other things around that area. So trying to connect with them on things like community gardens. And yeah.
How will you do this? Because to achieve and maintain citywide tree canopy and all of that, I mean, that's not compatible right now with the drought. You know, we've been told, don't plant any trees, don't plant any shrubs. How are you gonna work with that?
Right, well, kind of as you pointed out, we're stuck right now because of the drought. So this isn't like a next year goal for the tree canopy that was spread out over 15 years because it also takes some time for trees to grow.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we're working to identify ways, I think, to find trees that are more drought resilient, I think, as well, and plant those. Our park experiments, a lot of good work in identifying that. But as right now we have water restrictions, we're not going to be going against those while the community's facing those restrictions.
Damn if you do it.
Yeah, it's a really difficult spot to be since we just don't have the water. Transportation and land use. So this goes into both how we get around and also accessibility, making our city more densely developed, so that walkability and accessibility are a lot more achievable for everyone. So this includes some things with transit, electric vehicles, maybe providing some public charging. We've been exploring maybe options for that, but we would have to identify some funding for that project as well. And I heard at the last DAB I presented at, which was District 3, they were definitely very supportive of pedestrian safe infrastructure, and you guys had those conversations tonight as well. So I'm really glad that we were able to include that. But WAMPO is a group that we'll need to work with on some of this, and they've got I forget the exact name, but basically safe streets or safe something focused on safety and pedestrian safety. And yeah, Wichita Transit's going to be a big partner in this. Penny is the one that hired me, so I do know Penny already. I've got an in with transit in that way. And we also look at improving air quality with this. The other person that I work with closely on these projects and with the sustainability board is our air quality specialist. So she's got working on a grant from the EPA and focused on reducing ozone. And that's kind of where we see those electric lawn care rebates that we do each year. Those programs kind of all revolve in that same area. And then the last focus area, waste management and reduction. This is an area that we've heard a lot about, trying to provide different residential yard waste collection programs, talking about composting. Wichita doesn't have a ton of options for composting at the moment. There's one company that I know of that does it, is Nudge Compost, but trying to find ways that we can support the expansion of that. There's some state grants that focus on waste management. So looking at that, landfill emissions are difficult for us to have much of an impact on, other than the amount of waste that we're producing as a community. So finding ways that maybe we can recycle more, just produce less waste generally so that we don't have to worry about separating it out into recycling either. Also looking at things like preventing pollution in our streets, in our streams, and hopefully saving people some money on their disposal costs for items as well. Yeah.
Recycling, how do we do that when the trash companies take people's recycling they pay for a special bucket and just throw it in the trash anyway?
Yeah, the city does require, them to provide recycling bins. The city does require them to provide recycling bins, but you're right, I don't know if there's a lot in the ordinance about actually accountability for the trash companies.
People pay extra for it to go to the land.
So that would have to be something you take up with the trash company specifically. Yeah, I don't have a lot of say.
So what is the city doing? Like you just spoke about that.
That's shocking.
In regards to recycling.
Yes.
I mean, my hope is that a lot of these companies would be honest and would follow recycling as said. I can't speak to what they're doing individually, like if they're actually mixing in things. I know that one misunderstanding with recycling that happens a lot is if it's too contaminated with other waste that isn't recyclable, it does just have to be tossed.
Right.
So some of that is making sure that we recycle properly, but if it in the end we worry about where it ends up.
What is, I guess my question is more, what is the city doing to develop recycling, what you just spoke of before I spoke? What did you say? I didn't catch everything up there. Recycling, if you could repeat that, please.
Yeah, so we don't have any recycling programs aside from what we recycle at Brooks Landfill. I know that we can take some bulky items like mattresses. I know that there's a few organizations that provide some recycling. They do have to transport it outside of town, I think a lot of times to actually get it recycled. But the city does not have any of its own recycling programs. It does have a neighborhood cleanup program, which does help residents get rid of bulky waste. I think that's a good program to take advantage of, but we are looking at some ways that maybe we could highlight some composting or collecting yard waste. I think those are some areas that aren't currently covered by waste management, and that we could try to look at the city taking a role in some smaller fashion or working directly with some of those waste management providers into providing a service in that way. But kind of what you're getting at, I can't say that I have something directly that would address that.
Thank you.
I have another question running down through there. Are you going to have any authority whatsoever? What's your power status to say, okay, this is our goal for this department, but this means this department must do this. There must be some ordinances, there must be some code, there must be some things in place to improve the status. I mean, it's got to work throughout the system. It can't be this one little crew. I've been that one little crew for 40 years. Now it needs to be a broader approach. Are you gonna have the power necessary to get things implemented?
So I can say me individually, no, of course. But we have been working with other departments already. We've been in conversations with representatives from each of them in kind of the interdepartmental environmental team that kind of help put together a lot of this, make sure it's things that they're on board with and willing to work with these goals on. And I think eventually we would actually have this be a plan of the cities. We would need the city council support. So getting it voted on by the council and passed by them as kind of a plan of the city would then give it a lot more force and something the departments could follow. So something else I've tried to do is integrate existing plans into this so that we're not just coming up with a bunch of new things. They're things we've kind of
Just for you to keep in the back of your mind, the
Yeah.
thing Twyla keeps bringing up is accountability. And this would be, if you're setting these goals, how can we look to you for accountability of having achieved your goals? So just keep that in the back of your mind, that we're gonna be looking for, if you missed it by this much, why? And did you really have control over it? Because there's not much point in setting a goal if you can't get there. If you can't get there from here, like driving in Boston.
So I see that you talk about wind power. Is solar not a thing?
Solar is not much of a factor in Kansas as a whole. It is less than 1% of our energy. Right now, there's the ability to maybe get it installed on buildings, on individual sites, but there's no large generation of solar in the state. And there's, based on the county's new regulations, it doesn't seem likely that there would be a large solar project going in Sedgwick County anytime soon. I would say that it's part of exploration of cost saving for our buildings and looking at ways we could get that installed at especially with like maybe the advanced learning library, an all electric building. So they have a lot of electricity that they use every day. They might be able to save a lot by having solar installed. So yes, but not at a large scale.
Not for residential.
Sorry, you
Not
said,
for residential as much as commercial.
well, in residential, you can still get solar. Like there's no real restrictions on that aside from once you get it. I think it's a conditional use permit is all you would need. I know that there's definitely some residential solar in Wichita and that it's still available. But as of right now, we wouldn't have any money for rebates for that. And sadly, the state of Kansas was one of like 3 states that didn't get federal funding as part of a solar rebate program that they were trying to hand out. So I wish we would have gotten that funding.
Why not Kansas? Are they?
The state applied, they just
Okay.
did not receive
Oh,
it. I don't know if it was anything in particular with their application, but they were just not selected despite. all
How
the
often do
efforts.
they do that?
The solar like federal funding. I don't know that this would be a repeat program. It was called Solar for All, and it seemed like a one-time large investment that they then distribute to the states. There are some tax credits and rebates that are available to individuals and to businesses.
Oh,
but-
where do we find those?
Sure, yeah. I believe they're all gonna be with the Department of Energy, but I did put links to several of them on our sustainability page on the website under community resources. If you look at that page, that has a lot of the information on where to find things for.
Thank you.
You've obviously done a lot of work. This is really great information. I would encourage you, because you said that you've been looking at other communities. I would encourage you, if you can, to look abroad. You know, I have a sister who lived in Germany and she is complaining all the time, you know, how our electricity and so forth is so far behind, you know, what they're doing in Europe. And they're doing a great job. So maybe you might just get a little inspiration and move us ahead of what's going on even, you know, in the other cities or in our country. Put us way on the map. You can do it.
I've heard that sentiment before that we should put ourselves on the map for this.
There you go.
Sustainability.
Okay.
So you're not the only one thinking.
Okay, look in Europe. I mean, if you have.
I can't say that I did do a research
Okay.
project in school when I was studying abroad. I compared a city in Finland to Kansas City at the time where I was living. So I looked a little bit at their plans. They just did it 10 years before us. So that's why they're so far ahead, really.
Okay.
They started this many
Oh,
years
okay.
before us. That we got some room to catch up. But I like that you're all on support of it.
We have a
Yes.
question online.
Cool, yeah.
Online. Yeah, it's from Abby. Given the existing lack of public transit infrastructure as well as available funding in the future, a 10% increase in ridership over a decade doesn't seem like a very ambitious goal. What are the reasons for the forecast?
Yeah, the 10% increase in ridership, that was due partially because I saw how the numbers cratered in previous years leading up to the pandemic, after some policy changes, I think around, flagging down for stops. So I was looking based on past numbers if we would be able to achieve an increase in the coming years. I think it would also require more funding being put towards transit, so that's something else that's talked about, kind of stabilizing their budgets so they know how much funding they're working with. Right now, they rely on a lot of federal grants, so they don't always know how much money they're going to have year to year. I think that impacts their ability to work on that. Yes, so next steps, we've got a survey open right now to get more of this feedback and kind of get your opinion on some other things you wanted to ask about. That's available on the website. I think the city actually just posted on Facebook today, so you can also see it there. As I mentioned several times, I've been updating some different pages on the website to try to get more of this information out there. And we've got our future CID meetings. We'll be talking about this and other topics related to it. A couple weeks on the 23rd on a Wednesday. They're all on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. at the Advanced Learning Library on the second floor, in the second floor boardroom there, if you want to attend any of those. And we'll also be tabling Public Works for some water conservation things, and then the Sustainability Board will be tabling at the Open Streets event to talk a little bit about this. Some community feedback. Yeah, and so then there's my contact information and our website. That code leads to the survey. Link for the survey is down at the bottom, but those links are also available on the website. And then have some paper copies in case anybody didn't have access, but if anybody would like to buy. Yeah. And while I'm walking around, if there's any other questions.
Great job. Thank you. You got some questions.
It's a fun topic. I really enjoy the work though.
Thank
So,
you.
I appreciate all the questions because it
Yeah,
gets me thinking about that.
Very well.
Hard copy.
Ethan, can I get one, please?
Oh, yes.
Ethan, are you saying other DABs don't ask as many questions? Yes, that's.
No,
what
you
you're
ask
saying.
more questions. I only the one that dabs the more.
Okay.
I can't say it's true of all the numbers.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ethan. With that, we did move an agenda item, so we are now at the approval of the minutes for August. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion. Minutes from August 7th, is that correct? August 5th.
Motion has been made, is there a second? Motion has been seconded by Mary Beth. There is no further discussion, all in favor of approving the minutes of August fifth, please respond by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. One quick thing, our next meeting is November 4th, 6 p.m. in here. And forgot to tell you that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we now have open gym at Lynette Woodard Center from 3 to 5:30.
Say that again.
We now have open gym at Lynette Woodard Center from 3 to 5:30, free. We need to use it, so please tell people they can come. Unlike Tracy, don't get hooped on, they can come play basketball, not get crossed up. But
What days?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 3 to 5:30. So young people have something that they wanna go do something else and not just go home, they can go there, it's a safe space, play basketball, check out the new mural. Every now and then, I may go dunk on them. Cameron has a lot of experience as a ball player, so he said he might go dunk on them. But hope to get more young people out there using that space. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Has been moved, seconded by everybody, all in favor, please stand up. See you next month.
Thank you, everybody.